What's up, guys? I'm EJ. I'm joined by Kendall, and thank you all for checking out this our latest draft video. Today, we're talking about the NBA shooting guards. They're gonna be ranking our top 5 guys at the two. Kendall, when you get to the shooting guard position, I think, and really, we're coming as the buzzword has been the positionless basketball. But sometimes with the shooting guard, it's interesting because you have some guys who are combo guards. You consider more of a one. You consider more of a two. We talked about a little bit of some of those guys in our point guards video. So there'll probably a little bit of a discussion with some of these guys in our shooting guards video. But Kendall, as I said before, I feel like this is a very deep class when it came to the backcourt and when it came to coming to 5 guys. It was hard. It was hard. There are a lot of good players I felt that missed my cut that I think can be really good NBA players. But I think the strength in this draft this year is definitely with the backcourt players, and we're going to talk about some of them with the shooting guards.
Yeah, I kind of made a mistake last video when I said that I thought the point guard was the deepest and strongest position in this draft. After doing more work on the two guard spot, I was very surprised to come away almost more impressed with the two guard position than I was with the point guards.
Right.
And there are a lot of guys on this list, on my list, that didn't make it that would have made it on the point guard list. There are guys that didn't make it on this list. Guys that I may have 7 or 8 on my shooting guard board that aren't far away from the guy that's at number 2, for example. Right. So it's not a whole lot of separation between a lot of these guys in this two guard class. So yeah, I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, so I'll get started and I'll rank my top 5 guys. So number 5, I'm going with Keon Johnson, shooting guard out of Tennessee. The guy's a show-stopping athlete, a threat to posterize anybody who's near the rim if he has a head of steam. The guy had a record-shattering really NBA combine performance with the vertical jump at 48-inch vertical, and that athleticism you just can't teach. And while I do have some concerns about will he be a true a floor spacer with his 3-point shot. There's nothing really fundamentally that looks terrible with his 3-point shot. I think that maybe he could use a little bit of a wider base on his shot. And I think that the lack of confidence leads to him kind of looking like he kind of aims his shot. But we see in those mid-range jumpers, I mean, he's pretty proficient in the mid-range. He's pretty good in the post. For a guy his age and his size, I'm shocked. He's only about 6'5", but he punches people with his back to the basket. So I think that there's a chance that his jump shot will improve. The guy's an absolute terror when he gets in the open court, whether it's you're going coast to coast, getting downhill, or just filling the lane on the wing. He could really cause a lot of problems. And then I think the biggest upside for him is the defensive side. I mean, I think he's flashing the ability to potentially be a stopper on that end who can guard maybe 1 through 3. So given his athleticism, he'll probably be able to guard some 3 men. So I really like his game. Is definitely I think he's definitely a little bit of a ways away. I don't think he's a guy who comes in tomorrow and he's a starter. But I think that there's a lot of potential with Keon Johnson, and a lot of that starts with athleticism. So you gotta love that. So that's why I have him at number 5. Number 4, I went with Moses Moody, Arkansas shooting guard, 6'6", measured out with a 7-foot wingspan. And Kendall, when you watch him play defense, it really pans out, and the numbers pan out with that as well. Opponents shot 27%, Kendall, from the field and in spot situations. Around the basket. 27% from the field around the basket and in spot-up situations against Moses Moody when he was guarding them. Overall, I think they shot about 34% from the field when he was guarding them defensively. So, again, another player to me where the first eye-popping thing for me is watching him play defense. He's not necessarily the fastest guy. He's not the greatest athlete. I think sometimes that hurts him when it comes to finishing in the paint. But he uses angles extremely well. And he's able to force guys into very difficult shots because of that 7-foot wingspan. And he moves his feet, pretty well, even if he's not the fastest guy or the most twitchy guy. And I think that when you look at players who you're trying to eye who are the 3-and-D type guys that, we see thriving in the NBA playoffs this year, Moody seems to kind of fit the bill. He is shown to be a very proficient scorer, shooting 3-point shots from the corner. He's even shown a proficiency in floppy action off screens, which is actually a really big upside for him. You could actually draw stuff up from him and get jump shots like that. Again, the finishing, the ball handling are a concern, but I'm not sure if I'm drafting Moses Moody to be my number 1 option. And I think in the in like his highest ceiling, I see someone maybe that's like a Chris Middleton. If he continues to kind of advance that offensive game, we've seen some of that pull up game in his arsenal that suggests maybe there is more potential there. But even if he's just a 3-and-D guy, he seems like a pretty solid pick there. So he's my guy number 4. Number 3. So this is where it gets interesting for me. This is where I have James Bouknight, the UConn guard who's been rising up a lot of draft boards. And to some people, this may actually be low given when we're recording this video and some of the word we've been hearing about Bouknight. Look, he's an extremely shifty ball handler. He can get to anywhere on the court. He might, Kendall, actually be the first player I've watched in a long time. And I've said that there's nobody like this guy, and we've talked about him a bunch. He's the first guy I think he kind of reminds me of Jamal Crawford. And a guy who just can just get anywhere he wants. It seems like when you guard him one-on-one, you can't stay in front of him. He can score on all 3 levels, though the 3-point shot was a little bit of a concern. Better shooting off the bounce with the 3-point shot than he was in catch and shoot, which I think is where some of, similar to Jamal Crawford, I think some of the downside to Bouknight's game is something I can't ignore. I don't know if he's a great off-ball option for a lot of teams because they just weren't really great numbers from him when he was, playing off the ball. He doesn't really move well without the ball. And what I thought was also a little concerning was the pick and roll numbers were abysmal. I think he ranked in the 26th percentile in overall PNR offense. He didn't handle aggressive coverages that great because UConn wasn't the deepest team. They were trapping him and really blitzing him on those screens. He didn't handle that great. Maybe if you go to the NBA, those numbers are better, but he's also not the greatest passer. So I don't know if we're just going to see him be a great option as a PNR guy besides him trying to get his own shot. But the shot making is real. His layup package is incredible. He's great at floaters. He can score with both hands. And again, the guy's just a flat out scorer. And he's the guy in the NBA that I the ceiling, it's like you don't know with him. Because could he be a 25-point scorer? 100%. Could he be a 15-point scorer who's just a guy off the bench but is really good? That's also a possibility. I don't see a bust here. So he seems like a pretty safe pick there. But some of the issues, defensively also a little shaky off the ball, loses some focus at times. So a lot to like with Bouknight because of the offensive firepower, but just not quite ready to get to my top 2. So now my top 2, this may be the biggest surprise for a lot of people. But
I'm kind of going through the process of elimination, and I have no idea who's going number 2 right now.
So my second guy is Chris Duarte. So the more I watch film, the more I look into the numbers. The guy's an excellent player. To me, the only reason you wouldn't put him higher is just that he's old. But to be honest, Kendall, when I watch more film and I start looking at his numbers, the guy that he reminds me of, and this guy was a very old rookie too when he came into the league, and we watched him a lot in the playoffs this year, Bogdan Bogdanovic. Excellent catch and shoot player, excellent off the dribble. I mean, his numbers are just ridiculous. I mean, if you really look through the offensive advanced statistics for Chris Duarte, like, he's in the 90 percentile in pretty much every way you could score the basketball. 95 percentile catch and shoot, 94 percentile in half-court jumpers off the dribble, 80 in the isolation game, which people may say, okay, he's more of just a shooter. Well, in isolation, he's shooting 44% from the field, and he's in the 80th percentile there. He's 91 percentile in overall PNR. That means whether it's passing, whether it's him looking for a shot, he's a threat. He's just to me, he's a 5-tool scorer. I mean, there's nothing he really can't do. He's not the greatest. He's a decent athlete. I would say he's not the greatest athlete. He's not like, he's not Keon Johnson. But he's a good enough athlete. I don't see, to me, again, if we're talking about weaknesses and what you don't like about his game, he can be a little sloppy with the ball. He's not necessarily the flashiest ball handler. So, the shake he showed in college, will those numbers, live up to the height in the NBA? They're decent questions, but to me, there's just too much evidence to suggest that this guy is just a really great offensive scorer for me to ignore it. So I have him as my number 2 guy. It was close between him and Bouknight, but to me, if you're looking at it from a pure statistical standpoint, and I know basketball is not played by that, but from a statistical standpoint, it's not close. Bouknight makes it close by the tape and what you're hearing about his shooting ability in these workouts and at the combine. But to me, I had to give a Duarte the edge because there's very little evidence to suggest that he won't be able to just come in the league and get buckets. That leaves my number 1 guy, which I don't think is a much surprise to anybody, Jalen Green. Just again, elite level athlete, highlight waiting to happen in the open court. to me, he definitely projects as your potential kind of primary offensive scorer. If you're questioning whether or not Bouknight has that ability to be that 25-point scorer, I think that Green, you kind of look at and say, this guy, if he don't become that, then something went wrong, because he has all the physical tools. Really fluid jump shot. He can shoot off the dribble. Him and Bouknight are actually kind of similar players in some regard, but I think Jalen Green's proficiency as a better in the catch and shoot. I think he's more reliable as a 3-point shooter overall.
And much more explosive.
Yeah, and though I will say, I think Bouknight's athleticism is very underrated. He's also a really good athlete.
It's underrated, yeah.
But he's not Jalen Green.
He's smooth.
Jalen Green's an alien.
Yeah, he's a smoother athlete. Green is... The explosion is top 1%.
Yeah, Jalen Green is not from this planet when it comes to athleticism. So he's and then there's that potential. Again, I'm not sure if there's there, but he definitely has that primary ball handler potential there too. So that's an added bonus as well. So I love this game. There really isn't much for me to complain about. I think he has to fill out a little bit for sure. That's probably the main thing I would say. But all the tools are there for him to be a star player, multiple time All-Star. So he's my number one shooting guard.
Fascinating. I'll jump right into mine. I've got 3 guys that you did not have, so it's going to be
very interesting. Okay.
So I'll start at number 5, a guy that I think is swept very much under the radar in this year's draft, despite being a potential first round pick, and that's your guy, Joel Ayayi.
Wow. Okay.
The Gonzaga junior who. I think, again, it's swept very much under the radar in this draft because he's not the flashiest player. He played on the number 1 team in the country for most of last season, but was not the most high-profile or the second most high-profile or the third most high-profile player on his team. And so because of that, I think he, again, fell under the radar. But when you look at what Joel Ayayi does, obviously he's a guy who has a point guard background. He was a point guard coming out of high school, or coming out of Europe, really, before he got to Gonzaga. And obviously circumstances with this season playing with Jalen Suggs forced him to move the ball. And I think we saw this season he really thrived in that role of being the 2 guard who was able to, be a facilitator off the ball, but also, he shot the ball really well. The best he shot the ball at Gonzaga. He's a really, really, really good defender. And again, his playmaking skills are still that of a point guard. He hasn't lost that ability. I think he's a very high floor player. I don't think Joel Ayayi will ever be a superstar, but I think the shooting guard position nowadays has become. I don't know if you're looking for that guy to be the engine of your offense. You're not looking for that guy unless that guy is, like you mentioned, a guy like Jalen Green who could average 30. So I'm looking for guys that are going to be high-level role players. And I think Joel Ayayi can do that at the next level. I think number 4, I'm going to go to Tennessee, and I'm going to go with a guy that you did not mention. I'm going to go with Jaden Springer, not Keon Johnson. Jaden Springer, to me, is another guy who's very underrated in this year's draft. What I love about Jaden Springer, the age profile is tremendous. He's one of the youngest players in this draft, but yet plays with a toughness and tenacity of a 5-year JUCO senior. He's really strong, got an NBA body right now, could defend multiple positions at the NBA level right now at 18, 19 years old. And the one drawback about him, there's multiple drawbacks. He doesn't have a whole lot of shake with his handle, even though he can play the point at times. And he's not the greatest shooter. He shot good percentages, but wasn't a whole lot of volume. Not a whole lot off the bounce. Most of it off catch and shoot, and that's a concern. What I would say is that, again, he's 18 years old. And he's already shown an ability to make jump shots. And if he can figure that out, he, to me, is the ultimate role player, the ultimate glue guy on an NBA team. He reminds me a lot of Marcus Smart with his playmaking, his athleticism, his defense, his versatility. I really like Jaden Springer. I think he's going to work in the NBA. Number 3, I'm going off the grid a little bit, similar to how you did with Chris Duarte. I'm gonna go with Quentin Grimes, two guard out of Houston, who obviously EJ knows I'm a big fan of. I've mentioned Quentin Grimes quite a bit on this YouTube channel, and yeah, Quentin Grimes to me is he's a high floor but also high upside prospect with high level shooting ability, can defend at a high level, and is also a really good athlete. And I think we saw the high floor at the NBA Combine because he's a little bit older. He's not, no disrespect to Chris Duarte, he's not 24. He's 21, but he still has seasoning with his that comes with his talent level. And we saw he was way more prepared for that NBA Combine than everyone else that was out there, because of the range he shoots with. He's not afraid of the NBA 3-point line at all, and again just competes at a high level. At number 2, going with Moses Moody, the 2 guard out of Arkansas, who you mentioned, DJ, another guy, super role player. And if you can see a trend, with the guys that I have on this list. I would be surprised if Moses Moody isn't a starting NBA player, because he does everything that you'd want a starting NBA wing that's not your 20-point scorer to do. He can stretch the floor and space the floor. He defends at a high level. The length, you mentioned, he's not the twitchiest athlete in the draft, but the length, there's a lot of functional athleticism with the way he plays. The knockdown shooting ability is there, and I think he's a guy that has some potential to also develop as a shot creator, and those are things that you want to see from a 19-year-old 6'6" shooting guard. I mean, he fits a lot of the profile, and also what I love about Moses Moody is he comes from a high pedigree, coming from Montverde, where he played on the greatest high school team of all time, arguably. With Cade Cunningham and Scotty Barnes, to then going with Arkansas and being a 3 seed and making it to the Elite 8. I mean, he's won at every level, and he also is going to come with low ego because, again, in high school he was the third guy. In college he wasn't necessarily, and he was the best prospect, but he wasn't the best player on the team. And now at the NBA level, it's going to be a seamless transition for a guy like Moses Moody. Number 1. Jalen Green, no surprise. The most electric scorer in this draft, arguably the most electric scorer we've had come out in a long time. The athleticism, the shooting ability. He already has a signature move in his step back. He creates a ton of space with that move. He can get to the basket virtually whenever he wants, just based off of twitch and athleticism. You mentioned the size, 6'6", but with the ability to play point guard at times. I think he has to improve his handle, but if that happens, and I assume it will, then he's going to be unguardable at the next level. So the big thing with Green, again, it's just going to be the jump shooting, and it's going to be the point guard skills. But if those things improve, I mean, you're talking about a guy that could average 30 points at the next level. So very different lists. A lot of guys that I left off that I think deserve to be lottery picks or deserve to be top 20 picks. No, I think this is a really, really deep shooting guard class.
So I'll cross-examine you first, and you'll get to some of your guys. So I thought Bouknight being 3 was going to be low and anger some people. You don't have Bouknight on your top 5. So explain that.
Yeah, no. Felt bad about not having Bouknight, man. That was the tough one to me. The debate was him and Ayayi. The debate was really him and all of these guys. Like you could, if you had him at 2, I wouldn't be mad. I wouldn't say you're crazy. Right. I think the separation between 2 and 6 is not very much. But to me, the issue I guess I have with Bouknight, I love his scoring ability. I love his shot creation ability. It's about his value as a player if he's not going to be
the ultra usage guy, right?
Yeah, the ultra usage guy. Is he a backup? Is he a guy coming off the bench?
Right.
Is he Jordan Poole? Like Jordan Poole has a lot of upside and a lot of talent.
Definitely.
But he's probably best utilized as a guy who has the ball in his hands a lot, and he can't do that in Golden State. So that's the concern with James Bouknight. But certainly, if he figures it out, he could be the best shooting guard in this draft. He could wind up being the best guard in this draft.
100%.
So,
yeah.
That's the deal with Bouknight.
Yeah, I was surprised for Bouknight. You also didn't have Keon Johnson. You highlighted
so Keon Johnson.
You had the other swing player from Tennessee.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, some people play as a point guard, which is also an interesting decision by you as well.
Right. I view Keon Johnson as a 3.
Okay.
Personally, I view him as a 3. We'll see
He's 6'5".
where he is on the 3 list. Yeah, he's undersized.
Maybe
is that where he listed?
He's listed at 6'5". Him and Bouknight are the same height.
Yeah,
they're 6'4" and 7 and 6'4" and 3/3.
3/4.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So
that he's barely 6'5".
The guy's athleticism. I mean, I could get someone saying I'm gonna give it a shot at him as a 3, but he's barely.
How tall is PJ Tucker? And that guy's playing like the 5.
Yeah, but PJ Tucker's a tank.
Or Bruce Brown. That's I don't.
Bruce
think
Brown's kind of strong. I mean,
those guys are much stronger than Keon Johnson,
and Keon Johnson's 19, so that's.
I don't love Keon Johnson. We'll talk about Keon Johnson for me later in the process. But
he wasn't. You looked at him as a 3.
Yeah, like a Zaire Smith kind of.
And is Duarte the age thing? Is that just
Duarte is the age, man?
I mean,
to me, I have him lower on my thing. I like Duarte, but to me, I also worry a little bit about the defensive side of the ball. Like that's where to me,
he's a bit of a disaster.
Yeah, Cam Thomas. He's not as bad a defender as Cam Thomas.
No, yeah, Cam Thomas. If Duarte's a disaster, then Cam Thomas is like a tsunami or something. Because it's really bad.
It's really bad, and offensively, I mean, there's a lot to like. The shooting ability is incredible,
100%.
And you feel like it's only going to get easier at the NBA level when the defenses are not going to be able to double team him and stuff. But defensively, I don't think he's going to be able to get on the court. And Josh Christopher was the other guy that I was really close to putting on the list as well. But only 5 spots. For you, what was it about Keon Johnson that you loved, and maybe not having a guy like a Jaden Springer?
So with Keon, I just felt like with him, some of this, rankings are weird because some of it is like, are you ranking them just the best players, or are you trying to do some projection with it? And to me, I kind of do a mix. I do just the best players as some aspect of it, then I put upside is also a large part of this. So with Keon Johnson, he got a lot of upside points. You know what I'm saying? If I was ranking him up points, like for upside, he probably was like number 2. Because again, like that kind of athleticism with that kind of strength and that kind of speed and some of the little nuances you see of one-on-one scoring, they're small, but they're enough to make you kind of curious. I mean, the guy was he was 79%. He was in the 79th percentile on post-ups at 6'4".
He's a very good player in the post.
I mean, it's the guy that good, that young, who's gonna fill out more. He just seems like I just see a lot of potential there. Jaden Springer. Yeah, I felt like I was harsh on Jaden Springer in my initial evaluation. If I reevaluated after doing more work recently, I probably have him around 8 or 9. I mean, the shooting guards are deep because I had Jared Butler at 6 and Highland at 7. And we talked about them in the guard. I forgot. Yes, I had Butler at the 2, and I had both those guys. I was talking about them that they might make this list in the next video. They didn't make this one. They also were right on the outside looking in. I think Butler would have made it as a point guard if I was doing him as a point guard. So those guys I had consideration. Grimes came in at 8. So yeah, but Keon Johnson.
No Joel Ayayi. Where
Joel Ayayi is 14 on my list. Wow. I think, and it's not to say he's a bad player. I mean, all the guys I have ahead of him, I think, are really good. Like I think the difference.
13. Now I'm curious. I know we'll do a big board.
But Joe Wieskamp is 13 for me.
Okay, I have him as a 3 personally, but
okay,
it's just,
and that's
14
fair.
guys, I have him at 5. That's
but
crazy.
there are a lot of good players. I think with Ayayi, I think he's a very cagey defender, but I don't think he's a stopper. And again, I've watched him a lot. Like people I think are going to project him as this great on-ball kind of guy. I don't see him as that.
Right.
I also feel like it's so weird with him because I feel like in some ways, yes, you could say he's a point guard, but I actually think him playing the two is actually like I don't think he gives you much functional value as a one really, other than just like bringing the ball up the court and like running the play. Like I don't think he's really much of a creator offensively. So I think whatever advantage you feel you have of him having him be a kind of combo, I don't really see as much. I love the guy's an incredible rebounder. He might be the best cutter in the draft in terms of just making cuts, knowing exactly when to cut to the basket. He gets so many layups like that. I mean, he's going to find a way on an NBA roster. I don't see the upside that suggests to me he's a top 5 shooting guard given the talent that's there. I would definitely draft him in the second round, but I don't have a first round grade for him because I think the offensive creation is ordinary. I don't think that it's special, and I think what people may think of him as an all-ball defender, I don't know if he is. He's excellent off the ball. He has excellent hands. He's great at playing passing lanes, but I think quicker guys can give him problems defensively, and I've seen it. So that kind of if the defense was better, he could probably fight for a top 10 spot for me, but that kind of dropped him for me.
Fascinating. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong about anything you said. I just think it's funny because what I learned working when I've also done a lot of football scouting. Mm-hmm. And what I learned as a football scout is sometimes when you're ranking guys by position, sometimes you also have to. There's two ways of doing it, and some people like to rank based off of like what your role is going to be, like role-based grading rather than skill-based grading. And so like for James Bouknight, if his role is going to be what Jalen Green role is going to be, then he's the number 2 guy in this draft. But if you don't view him as doing the same thing as Jalen Green, and you don't think that his role is essentially as important as what Moses Moody's going to do, or what in my opinion, Quentin Grimes and some of these other guys, that's where I think him and Cam Thomas are the same guy in terms of what they're going to be able to do. But I think he's just better than Cam Thomas. I think, him and Chris Duarte are similar, and Duarte and Cam Thomas are similar. But I think that's where the separation comes with those guys. But it's really interesting.
Yeah, I think Bouknight. Really, yeah, I mean, I feel like Bouknight, him becoming the most fascinating man in the world when it comes to this draft is not that surprising, because I think you kind of nailed it. Because it's like if someone convinced me that I think he's averaging 25 points at some point,
he's Bradley Beal, he's Devin Booker.
Yeah, if someone convinced me of that, I'd say I get it, And if that's the case, and you're saying you want to draft him in the top 5 or 10, which is what we're hearing, like I get that. I think I just have great skepticism when I'm putting that kind of onus on anybody. He's like, you're gonna come in as a rookie, and I'm looking for you to average 20, and you're like the future focal point of my offense. And he shows flashes of that, but that's why I went to Jamal Crawford to me, because I feel like he has some limitations, but some of the stuff he can do is so excellent, it might not matter. Like he may earn that usage because it's like, but nobody can stay in front of him. And you got to you have to send 3 guys at him to fluster him. And yes, he does get flustered, but that's what it takes. You can't guard him 1-on-1. And there may be teams will say, okay, maybe he can't do that as a starter, but could he beat my 6th man and do that? Definitely. We've seen
the best
Crawford or Lou Williams, guys like that have carved out careers. To me,
the best
he's definitely in that. He's definitely in that ilk to me.
The best comp that I have for any of these guys in this 2-guard class is, I think Cam Thomas reminds me a lot of Gary Neal.
Neal.
No, look, it's not a knock, but because Gary Neal was great. I mean, he was a great player, but he was an NBA veteran. But electric scorer, but some limitations that will keep him from being on the court all the time.
If we're mixing comps in here, and I'm sure we'll have more comp videos, but maybe we won't do these guys that we're naming today. But I also, to me, when I looked at Keon Johnson, he reminded me a lot of Jason Richardson. Ability to play in the post, incredible athlete in the open court,
He's got to get stronger, but yeah.
unreliable shooter to start, but became a great shooter. Jason Richardson's first 3 years in the NBA, he was hovering around 30%. 1 year he shot below 30% from three. He was shooting them, but the results weren't great. And I feel like that's probably what we see from Keon Johnson early in his career. But could he rise that number up? I really think he will, because I believe in the foundation he has as a shooter. And again, if I didn't see those other shooting numbers, especially the mid-range stuff, maybe I'd be more skeptical. When I watch him shoot three-point shots, it just looks like he's thinking a lot, and it looks like he's aiming these shots because he didn't start off shooting well, and I think he never really got it going. I feel like with great coaching and work, he will be a good shooter. So if you think he's a good shooter, I don't know how he's not a top 5 guard to me, because the athleticism is crazy. You know he's going to be able to get to the rim once he works on the handle a little bit. At the very least, he's going to be able to get out in the open court. So, but yeah, there's a lot of interesting players, man. I felt bad still. Jared Butler still didn't make my top 5, even though I moved him to 2. He's a great scorer. Just a great all-around offensive player. But this was a tough group. Like I think them and point guard. I think those are the 2 toughest positions. You can flip a coin, and it really depends on who you have at this point. I know because to me, I see 12 guys who I would have. Well, I see 10 definite first round picks, and I have I can go 14 deep with that includes Ayayi with maybe like a late first round grade. Like I wouldn't have Ayayi as a first rounder, but if someone did it, it wouldn't shock me. If someone took his camp late, it wouldn't shock me. We didn't even mention a guy like Josh Primo, who is also rising a lot in the draft.
Not super high on Josh Primo. I mean, I love Austin Reeves. I look at him as more of a 2 than a 1.
Right.
And he wasn't really even in the conversation.
Yeah. And I love Quentin Grimes, man. I couldn't believe when I came up with this list that he came in at 8 for me. I'm like, Quentin Grimes is 8. Like, I really don't find. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I think that he's I think he's going to be probably a steal wherever he goes.
Yeah.
But I really legitimately couldn't put him ahead of a lot of the guys I had there, and I didn't know what to do. So this is a really deep class, man. What do you guys think about the NBA shooting guards? Leave us a comment. It should be NBA draft shooting guards. Make sure you leave us a comment on where you would rank these guys. Did you agree with our rankings? I'm sure plenty of you guys will have some disagreements with some of the guys we had listed here. Leave a comment in the comment section. We always love to interact with you guys. Of course, if you like the video, make sure you give us a like and subscribe to the channel. New Generation Media for more draft content coming up. That'll do it for now. For Kendall, I'm EJ. Take it easy, guys. Peace.